I'm so excited to start talking about the Leaf Cup because I have a very big feeling it's going to be close to a perfect score. This might just be a me thing, but I always feel like Wario and Waluigi tend to get the best track themes in these games. Something about the absurdity of their tracks and the music and just what's going on all around it has always made me look forward to one of their races, starting from way back on the Nintendo 64 and until now. I feel like whenever the designers like to make something that's more wild and gimmicky, they automatically assume they should attach one of the Wario brothers to it. Which is kind of funny because Water Park technically has references to the Wario brothers in it. Like there's a big Ferris wheel with the W on it. I think there's a few other things that pop out as you race around the track. But it's not an official Wario or Waluigi named track. And my personal headcanon is that they did that because it was pretty tame. You know, when you think of Wario and Waluigi, you think of cannons, you think of explosions, you think of pinball, dirt roads, motorcycles, stadiums, all that fun stuff. Not a tame old water park that you take your grandma to. I feel like the only reason they added any of those references in there was because water starts with a W-A and so does Wario and Waluigi. But to get back to the Leaf Cup, I think I mentioned this a few segments ago when I talked about the Shell Cup, so I won't go as in-depth into it as I did last time. But as a quick summary, I'm of the opinion that when they decided to add the retro tracks to the game and they wanted to make 4 new cups for them, they decided to go the item route instead of the power-up route. But beyond the shell and the banana and the lightning, nothing else really checked the box for being a good item to use. So they decided to go back to the power-ups like they did for the Mushroom, Flower, and Starman. But since they no longer had any items to grab from Super Mario Bros. 1, and Super Mario Bros. 2 doesn't really have any power-ups, they ended up going into Super Mario Bros. 3, and really from that giant pool, the most obvious one to grab was the Leaf. At least this is all my opinion of how they determined that the Leaf Cup would be next. Still, they put it in the order before the Lightning Cup because I think the Lightning Cup just kind of had that oomph to be the final one. Here's an interesting tidbit. If you leave out the crown for the Special Cup, which I will because I've talked about that way too much in the previous segments, of the remaining 7 cups, the Super Leaf is the only one that's not included as an item in the game. Actually, it gets a little bit more interesting, if you find this stuff interesting. But of those 7 cups, again, not including the Special Cup because the crown wasn't ever an item, the Super Leaf only ever appeared in a single game. Meanwhile, the Mushroom, Starman, Banana, and Lightning have been in every single game. The Fire Flower also surprisingly has made very few appearances, only coming in Mario Kart 7 and 8. But at least there were fireballs in previous games. But even despite that, the Leaf made it into the game and then was dropped on the immediate next one. And yet it still stands tall as one of the primary 8 cups in the game. Anyway, as per usual, this is a scoring sheet for how I'm grading every one of these Grand Prix. If you're new, welcome aboard. I'm doing this every day at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And the goal is to cover all 24 Grand Prix, but if I finish Mario Galaxy, I might switch over to that and then come back to Mario Kart to finish it up later. We'll see. But anyway, let's look at the Leaf Cup. It is the 7th Grand Prix in this game, and the 4 tracks include Wario Stadium from the Nintendo DS, Sherbert Land from the Nintendo GameCube, Music Park from the 3DS, and Yoshi's Valley from the Nintendo 64. I don't know if it's just me, but before I even get into the analysis, I feel like this is a very loaded cup. Not even thinking about the analysis, just thinking about how iconic each one of these tracks are. I feel like their originals are all some of the most memorable ones of the franchise. Maybe Sherbet Land is the one that sticks out the least, but I doubt that because usually the snow levels are remembered. But unfortunately for the Leaf Cup, I am not grading based off of how iconic the levels are. Fortunately, however, we start off with Wario Stadium. 3 points. I'm not even going to tiptoe around this one. I love this track. It checks off so many boxes for me. Wario theme, check. Came from the DS, check. And aside from that, I guess the track is good too. In all honesty, I think they actually drastically improved this compared to the DS version, and I already thought the DS version was really good. Which is a pretty common theme in this game, and something that I think Mario Kart 8 deserves a lot of credit for. Almost every track that it brought back was an improvement. At least off the top of my head they are. I know there are a few outliers in there. Rainbow Road from the Nintendo 64 comes to mind because a lot of people don't like that they made it only a single lap. But as far as track layouts, I personally feel like they were all improvements, and would actually love to hear people's thoughts otherwise in the comments. Because with all of the upcoming retro tracks as I go through this, that way I can give the ones that people thought were not an improvement a deeper look to figure out why exactly they failed. But anyway, in regards to Wario Stadium, I've always liked the heart in the middle of the map. Of course, if you rotate it just right, it becomes a W. Or maybe it's meant to be a profile of Wario's face, because the top part looks like his nose, and then it looks like there's the mustache to the right of it. The bottom could be his chin, and the heart could be his mouth. I can't find anything online to back this, but I swear they were trying to do something with Wario in this map. And the original DS version didn't even look like this. Anyway, I like the anti-gravity section that they added onto here. The underwater portion also adds a little bit of a fun, unique element to it. My favorite part is the little humps with the speed bursts over the mud. And that portion where you jump through the flame rings is always so awesome. Okay, I think I'm gushing too much. The final thing I'll mention is that I think it's hilarious how shafted the Nintendo 64 version of Wario Stadium has gotten ever since the DS version came out. Makes sense to me because I think it does everything better than the Nintendo 64 version. I didn't realize it back then. I was always kind of offended that they gave it the same name but not the same track. But no, it's clear to me why that one hasn't been brought back yet. It would need a complete overhaul. Which maybe Mario Kart 9 could do. But that's enough of that. Easy 3 points, let's move on. Sherbet Land is one of 8 snow tracks in the entire game. But even within the winter theme, there are different types of snow levels. I mean, just comparing this one to the one that I covered prior, Mount Wario, they're clearly 2 very different types of tracks, aesthetics and all. Mount Wario is something that I would compare to DK Summit, but Sherbet Land has always given me Frappe Snowland vibes from the Nintendo 64. So much so that when I took a long break from Mario Kart 8, somewhere around 2020 for a year or two, when I came back to it, I was pretty sure Frappe Snowland was in this game, and it's because of Sherbet Land. There's a lot I appreciate about this track. The divide to the underwater segment I think is pretty cool. The course takes place at night, you can see the northern lights in the background, you can see some fireworks, there's a cool cave section. The map is a pretty complex loop offering a bunch of chances to drift. And I don't know, for me it's always felt like a course that does nothing wrong and does a whole lot right. I definitely don't love this track the way I liked the previous one that I was talking about, or even a handful of the other 3-point tracks that I had discussed. But I know this is more than just a 1-point track. This could easily be one of the highest 1-point tracks or one of the lowest 3-point tracks. It could go either way. I'm going to round up and give it the 3 points in this instance because I really like the vibe of the stage in general. I don't know, something about the nighttime snow theme just makes me feel warm for some weird reason. I know this might not make sense, but I feel like my biggest justification to give this one 3 points is I gave Dolphin Shoals 3 points, and I feel almost the same about this one as I do on that one. But I will add that I think that they got the order wrong. I think Wario Stadium was actually a more difficult track than this one. So at the end of all this, I definitely won't be adding that single point for the difficulty curve. But the 3 diversity points are still up for grabs. Next up is Music Park. This is starting to get unfair. It's a music-themed track, so you know I'll eat that right up. You drive over a piano and all these different types of instruments. You get the boost off of a drum. And the part with the music notes bouncing up and down is so memorable to me. I mean, even the piranha plants are having a good time here. How could anybody not feel like this is a 3-point track? It's unique in its design, it's unique in its map layout. These are the types of Grand Prix I dream of, when everything is just so different, and nothing is completely boring. Like through this whole Grand Prix, the most boring one is probably Sherbet Land, and that's not even that boring. It's got the northern lights in the sky. Yoshi Valley, interestingly enough, is a track that I think was improved when it was added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I also like it less in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I feel like when you got to the section where the entire map gets tangled out, it used to be a lot more interesting in the Nintendo 64 version. Over here, it's not quite as enticing, but I'll tell you what, they still have the giant Yoshi egg, the aesthetics look amazing, the overall theming is fun. It's a track that I think many people started to like less because once everyone figured out the optimal route, they stopped caring as much about the whole maze aspect of it. But I think even if you know exactly what the fastest route is, it's still a pretty fun track with a lot of difficult turns to make. I mean, in my opinion, it was phenomenal on the Nintendo 64. Over here, it's still very good and one of the top tracks that I look forward to playing. But I will say that while Sherbet Land, I felt like I was rounding up by giving it the 3 points, Yoshi Valley getting the 3 points is just barely on the line. On a bad day, I could have dropped it all the way down. Which means this is actually my second Grand Prix to sweep up all 12 points available for the tracks. I'm actually not surprised at all. I knew before I started when I looked at the names of the tracks that this was going to be a good one. I did surprise myself that when I started actually getting to the critical aspect of it, I started noticing some things that might bring it down. But when I put this next to the Star Cup, which is the other one that I gave 12 points to all the tracks for, it actually makes full sense to me. All 8 of these tracks are some of the best tracks in the game for me. These are all tracks that if I was scrolling through the list, I would pick them to play them. But to officially tally up the scores, we have Wario Stadium with 3 points, Sherbet Land with 3 points, Music Park with 3 points, and Yoshi Valley with 3 points. The Grand Prix gets an additional 3 points because I think every track does a great job being diverse. But similar to the Star Cup, I think the difficulty curve needed some work. I'd probably have gone Sherbet Land first, followed by Yoshi Valley, followed by Music Park, or Wario Stadium. Actually, those two can go either way, I'm not sure. But yeah, that means we're at 15 points, which, like I said, it ties the Star Cup. Still haven't managed to get one to get the full 16, but at least these two and the Banana Cup together have managed to get pretty close. 3 out of the first 7 Grand Prix scoring this well is not bad at all, and is actually better than I expected. But I do think it's funny that the 2 Grand Prix that I picked have a music theme, a Wario theme, and a snow theme. But let's see how the Lightning Cup does. I have high expectations of the final cup of the base game.